God bless you, global Christian friends. God bless the American people and the American government. John, James King, Bible, chapter 2, verse 8. Draw out now. How long did it take? Fill the water pot with water. When it was done, draw it now. When the last one of the water pots was filled, that was the time for the conversion of water to wine. Draw it now. And you notice Jesus waited until the last water pot was filled. And when it was filled, he's always doing these kinds of timely miracles and things. And Jesus don't have to be present to perform a miracle. And we found that out about the good nobleman from Capernaum when he told him, "Come down and heal my son before he dies." And Jesus told him that except you see miracles and signs and wonders, you will not believe. He said, "Come down before he dies." Jesus told him what Elijah said, "Go thy way, thy son liveth." He brought the word all the way from the mouth of Elijah way back in the old days into Cana, where he made the water wine, and sent it all the way to Capernaum, the other side of the sea, where Capernaum is from Cana. In other words, Jesus don't have to be present to perform a miracle the way that we think that he is capable of doing. Come down before my son dies, thinking that you got to be there to perform a miracle. No, Jesus don't have to be anywhere except where he is to perform miracles, to perform signs, to perform wonders. Draw it now and bear unto the governor of the feast. And they bear it. Governor of the feast is one who's in charge of the functionings of the feast. Now I want to say this, that it takes anywhere from 7 to 8 days for a Jewish wedding feast to occur. So Jesus had to make sure that he had enough wine there for the occasion, which is why 48 gallons appeared sufficient. And verse 9, when the ruler of the feast had tasted the water that was made wine, and I want to stop here for a moment. The water that was made wine. And we talked about Jesus taking spittle and making clay. We know that you don't see the full impact of what it means to take spittle and make spittle into clay. Just like you don't see the full impact of taking water and making it into wine. But you have to open your eyes and see these kind of things so that you can understand more effectively about the Lord, more effectively about Jesus. It's kind of like knowing righteousness without knowing the works of righteousness. Knowing righteousness without knowing the effects of righteousness. All right? He made water that was made wine. But he knew not, verse 9, whence it was. But the servants which drew the water, they knew. The governor of the feast called the bridegroom and said unto him in verse 10, Every man at the beginning doth set forth good wine. That's the nature of it. Set forth the good wine first of all. And when men have well drunk and have inebriated themselves, then that which is worse. but thou hast kept the good wine until now. That's always the case with the Lord. The good and the better always comes later. Out there across the world, make that statement. The good and the better with God always comes later. This beginning of miracles did Jesus in Cana, which means the nest, of Galilee, which means the circle, and manifests forth his glory, and his disciples believed on him. This was the miracle that brought the understanding upon Peter, Andrew, Nathaniel, and Philip, to let them understand that we follow the right person. We chose to follow the right person because he is capable of doing these things. And this miracle signified to them more so who he was. All right? So this miracle had a purpose. His disciples believed on him. Now, after this, he went down to Capernaum, he and his mother and his brethren. And you know the name of his brothers, and you know the name of his sisters. The name of his brothers is Joseph, James, Judas, and Simeon. And the name of his sisters is Esther and Salome. And I'll give you the other name shortly, his third sister's name. But it's important to know that Salome was the mother of James and John. And this is how it comes down through history. Joseph, who was the spouse husband of Mary, had 7 children. And he had, we said, Esther, the mother, Salome, of James, had the 4 boys, and Salome was the daughter of Joseph. And this is why you may hear in history that John was a cousin of Jesus, but more than likely a nephew of Jesus, because if the mother of John is Salome, who is the daughter of Joseph, who was the spouse husband of Mary, all right, then that makes John and James his nephew. And this may be why some of those say, well, this is why Jesus told John from the cross, son, behold thy mother. And he spent the last 15 years, well, she spent the last 15 years with him after that. And they got the house there in Ephesus where she had passed away eventually after that time. We've gotten all this before. You have the history on this before. It's nothing strange or unusual. But we're going to continue later on in verse 12 of chapter 2. God bless you, global Christian friends.